YouTube fans, we are here today for a very exciting occasion. The book is out, and we are raring to go and look at the book for Kingdom of Equitaine.
Oh, good start.
Right. I'll edit.
Whoever they are.
Yeah, it's a name change, but no. I'm here with Hyper G as always. Hello, good sir.
Hello. Good sir, if I have to call you good sir.
You don't.
Yes.
And you never have,
No.
so why start now?
Exactly.
But we're also here with Ludaman, one of the... I'll let you introduce yourself, because you've got about 18 titles, so I'm definitely going to miss like one of the main ones. But yeah, here, Ludaman, how are you?
So, Ludaman, been a member of the forums for a while, KOE ACS, Playtester. I was on the original promo team, which was like social media oriented at first. And I don't think I've done any of that for a year, but you know, as many aspects of the project as I can get into. So,
yeah, man. No, so we're very honoured to have you here, and this is our first book review with someone else as well. So
I think so. Yeah. So this one might actually be credible.
Yeah, we might half just blag off your stuff and know what we're talking about, so that's good. But we also, for the first time, have had an actual battle with this, which is coming up. Oh, you should have seen, actually, earlier this week. So we feel a bit more prepared for this. This is like one of the... so we're hoping this goes well. Of course, there's a disclaimer that, it never does, but...
this is where we can tell you how many mistakes we made during the previous battle that we played. So,
there's a few. There's one obvious one that I've got in my head, but anyway. But yeah. But here we are. Yes, Kingdom of Equitaine. So this is a book that we've had for a little while. So there may, as a disclaimer as well, there may be some name changes, whatever. You can put them in the comments if you want. I'm not going to read them.
Yeah.
But anyway,
you're not going to read them because you don't read, but you'll reply anyway.
I reply.
You do reply.
You get shapes, don't you? And you can just about in the right. But anyway. So we're going to crack straight on. We do as well have some moments where we're going to split up just from looking at a book as well. So that which is exciting. I don't want to spoil that, but that's exciting as well. But straight onto it. Before we get onto the actual rules and looking at that stuff, so I'll leave that up anyway. But how did you find the book making process, I guess?
For me,
yeah.
So, watching the other books get done, it was pretty cool, the entire process to watch from outside. On the inside, it's one of those you don't want to know how the sausage gets made sort of thing. But what I will say is that every single person who's involved is really passionate about it. I don't know if I would assume it would have to be this way, but I don't know if there's been a team where every single person involved, from the guys who were on the design team to the rule team to the ACS members to the guys in background, were this in love with this army for as long as it was. And I don't know if that's because it's easier to want to be a knight in shining armor than it is to be like a goblin shaman, but there's something about it. People are very passionate, so it's been interesting to see. There were tug of wars back and forth, with different directions people wanted to go. But honestly, I think every single person involved is very happy with the final product. And we've all been playtesting it for months now. The design guys have been playtesting it for months, and I think as we go through it, people are going to see how exciting it is.
Yeah. So when we slate it, that's just going to really hurt you deep, right?
Oh no! By all means, dig in. That's the fun part. We don't sign up for ACS to promote. We sign up to argue with the players on the forum.
No,
absolutely.
Yeah. As a bit of a disclaimer as well, we are, after battling, we're quite excited to look at more lists and have more battles with it. So I guess from that point of view, it's a success anyway, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, we'll see. So, army-specific rule, the big one, really, the blessing, the one that everyone's really looking at as the main thing, is that is it every single one? Because I know some of the peasants do, but most units, I'll put as a disclaimer, have an Aegis 6 X+, which will change depending on what sort of type of unit they are. And it will be, instead of praying or anything like that, it will be affected by the next ones, which are the personal protections of the courage, ordeal, or honesty. So they sort of like, there's a lot of different ways basically that 6-up or X plus gets altered in different scenarios, which is really cool.
Yeah, and there isn't any more mention of like it gets better with strength 5 attacks or anything like that. It's now very dependent on what type of personal protection you have.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So there's a
very
which
unique.
I think rather than having like a one size fits all for the whole army, you've got a one rule, but you've got lots of potential within that variety of how you protect yourself, depending on their lore, I guess, really. From it.
Yeah, and that's one thing I'll step in and say here is this was a big deal for background team and the guys in the design team. Was in the past, it felt like the Lady of the Lake, the goddess, who was looking over the army, really only cared about the rich guys. Like if you were born into nobility, she had your back, and if you were born a peasant, you were not looking so hot. So the idea now is every aspect of society gets their protection in some way that sort of matches what their role is in society and their background. So whether you're a knight charging into the battle, or whether you're a damsel who's casting spells, or you're the lowly foot soldier with your pot helmet and makeshift halberd held up, you're going to get some sort of protection for what you're doing, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, man.
I like it even more when it's explained like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
I guess from the sort of like other point of view is that you've got lots of things. Once you get your head around those 3 different things, it's really it's pretty simple, but it's getting your head around it in that initial sort of thing. So looking at those, you've got courage, honesty, and ordeal. Courage being if you don't have an armor save because of whatever reason, then you get a better Aegis, is essentially in a nutshell. I also like that these have got little lines before. I'm not sure that has happened in every single lab we've had, so I really like that as an addition.
Just a one-liner that gives you a bit of context as well. It's nice.
And not in every rule or anything like that, but it is on where it's at. I think it's quite cool. So you've got courage, which is no armor save, gives you better Aegis. Honesty gives you more better Aegis against magical attacks, and ordeal, which didn't come up in our thing, but basically if someone else that has courage or honesty, so which I guess is the noble bit, right? So the peasant to the noble, is in the combat with you, then you get an Aegis as well. But can only be 5 up because they're only peasants. Come on. So they're not too different. They're not too hard to remember once you've read them and sort of understand which ones are which. And I quite like the ordeal. The ordeal one feels very fluffy. So like they're better when they're just like not very confident, and then when someone's better, I was like, yeah, we can do this. I quite like that as an idea.
Yeah. Or yes, you will do this.
Yeah. It depends how you're theming your army, right?
Well, exactly, yeah. And the courage one also had the pip of ignoring friendly units consisting of models with ordeal as well for panic tests.
Yes.
So
I think that was a bookkeeping thing largely, so you didn't have to have insignificant and then the addendum for the damsels. Oh, they can join insignificant. It just made it much easier with the courage and ordeal.
Yeah.
Yeah. So pretty simple. So far, none of them really stand out. You have like some rules in the past that are quite complicated to get your head around, but I don't think these are very hard ones to get your head around. I guess the most complicated or the most different, I would say, rule is this Orison rule that's come in.
Yep.
So Orison being sort of like a new form of token pool that you can get within the game, which is a very new concept. I'd say sort of one of the things that will draw you to this book, I think. So looking at there's different ways to get Orison and stuff, and we'll go through them in the book. But if a character or item has Orison X, then you add whatever that number is into your Orison pool.
At the start of the game.
At the start of the game, maximum 6 at any point in the game, and there are different ways throughout the game to get different Orison tokens, and basically what that does is it gives you like an extra buff if you expend one of these tokens on one of your units, and depending on if you're close to an Orison taking unit and stuff like that. Again, a concept that it has to be thought of in list building as well, I think,
massively,
and deployment and stuff like that.
Not only have you got to figure out what your Orison is, but you've also got to figure out who can give it to who and where they are. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, no, it has a few. So from that point, you could say it has a few like things that you've got to be a little bit extra careful of. When you're writing the list, when you're deploying the list, when you're using the actual list. However, if you do get it right, it gives you some major bonuses. So Holy Strike, Holy Shield, Holy Wrath, +1 to hit is Holy Strike, which is great. It makes you an elf, right? Yep. Holy Shield, which is +1 Aegis. A lot of the +1 Aegises and things like that have a max to them as well, as a caveat. But yeah, Holy Shield being +1 Aegis at all times, which is great. And Holy Wrath being fear, or if you've already got it, terror. So that's probably the most, that last one, the most...
I can't think of the word. Situation.
Consequential. Situational is you got it.
Walking thesaurus is what we are.
But yeah, so I mean, with those rules and stuff, they really affected the game when we played. And I think it will also. So not only is it like a decent thing, it'll help better players play it better as well. So you've got like a skill thing as well. So because obviously, if for example you're outside of a Orison range, who does that, then you won't, and you're like, okay, so I just need to be better on the thinking of the movement and stuff. So that's quite an interesting thing. How did the Orison thing come about?
So I think the initial concept, and I might be wrong here, Echo Control, who's on the design team, had sort of his vision, which was tokens that were all related to sort of different things that your knight units could do, or your units in the game could do. And, if you did this, you could get X bonus. If you did this, you get X bonus. And it was very complex. But the idea, I think, people liked of sort of having a little bit more control rather than just the Lady of the Lake protects you from a stronger sword arm from an ogre. It's going to be, maybe you get a little bonus to hit, maybe you get a little bonus to a save over here. And I think the way that they've done this, I think probably the first couple weeks after launch is going to be sort of controversial. It's already been brought up in the forum. Is this too powerful? What I would say to that is, you look at the Holy Strike, and you're right, it's hitting like an elf, but on units that aren't elf units. So the best you're getting with your plus to hit is maybe a Dread Elf Knight unit on the charge. What's the advantage here? Maybe you get a little bit more movement in the actual movement phase to make that charge, but you have to use the Orison token. They're limited. So at best, you're swinging like an elf, right?
Yeah, sure.
With Holy Shield, at best, you're saving like a demon. And with Holy Wrath, at best, you're chasing the entire Vermin Swarm army off the board.
Which is handy.
And it should be said that you can't have more than one thing in there. You can't have more than one on a unit at any time. And as well as another caveat. So, and
one question we did have is, can someone who issues an Orison give out more than one effect to two different units?
Two different units.
We thought that was right.
I mean, the big things I'll say here is, I think some of the fear of how powerful this is misplaced, because where you're trying to save it for is a combat phase, and you're never going to get both the plus to hit and the Aegis save in the combat phase. So your best case scenario is usually getting a big charge with a big unit and punching a hole through the other unit, which is what Kingdom of Equitaine players have been asking for since the very first edition. Is, let's get rid of that rubber lance. Let's not roll on.
You'd think that's gone.
I know. It still comes up to me. You charge with your hammer knights, and you're like, 11 ones. How did that happen?
Exactly,
There's no book in the world that can stop from that, though.
No, I know. The dice gods are fickle and cruel. They're worse than chaos. Dark gods. Anyway. But you're in combat, you're never going to get both. So a good enemy unit can always put up a good fight. And then if you're trying to save your butt from powerful Infernal Dwarf shooting, or my arch nemesis, which is the Git launchers from Orcs and Goblins raining down on my knights, well then 1, 2, 3 turns and all your Orison tokens are gone and you have nothing left for combat. Or you're letting them splatter your knights all over the pavement and you get to combat and you don't have enough knights to make it work. So it really, what I will say is there is one potential thing that I could see being a problem, which is you start your shooting phase and you go, okay, my Git launcher's firing at your unit of Knights Resplendent. And I go, oh, sorry, I forgot to say I was supposed to use an Orison token.
Yeah.
And that to me is the one area where you're going to need these tokens. You're going to need something to use as a token. You're going to need cards. You're going to need, you know, dice or whatever. And you're going to have to be prompt about it. And it's probably going to take a month or two for people to really get that into their wheelhouse. Of, it's the magic phase, I'm using an Orison. It's the shooting phase, I'm using an Orison.
Yeah.
You know, combat's easy because it can go individual combat by individual combat. So I don't have to declare I'm using them all at the beginning of this combat phase for each unit. I can go, okay, we're starting this combat, I'm using an Orison. So,
yeah, absolutely.
But I do see that as being the one big issue here. The actual power level, though, I feel like it's just a fluffier version of the prayer. And I feel like people are, after a couple months, going to realize you get what you pay for. The units are priced to make use of these, but it's not as simple as just having a Grail Knight unit that always has a 5-up active Aegis save and always has everything. You're not going to see that.
And I think there are a few little niches in here where it's much better to save them for the melee phase as well. We'll get onto it later, but like the the Faith as a thing. But so there are a few little rules in there that do encourage you to do that, but you can use it in other phases. And like you said, one person that has Orison can do multiple, but then they're all gone in one phase, you know. So I think we're going to skip straight away onto the Hereditary. Because it's very apt in this thing, so forget about this stuff. But the Hereditary Breath of the Lady is you gain 2 Orison tokens, so very apt in this point. Reasonable casting thing as well. We didn't find it perhaps 1 or 2 more because you can 2 dice this with +1 fairly recently. But so obviously things will happen with that, but it's solid and it really adds.
I thought it was a really good Hereditary. I think it's really topical. I thought it was perfectly powerful, power-wise. I thought it was perfect. I thought it gave you a chance to buff up your Orison your pool. And I kind of feel like if your opponent is letting you get this spell off, then they're going to face the consequences. And if they want to stop your Orison, just stop this spell. or stop the effects that will boost your pool.
Yeah, and it's a different Hereditary as well. I know it obviously goes specific with the army things, but it's not just a magic missile or a generic buff and things. It's a really cool mechanic that isn't something you've seen before. So I like that you sort of lumped onto it and gone in that. Was there any other suggestions for a Hereditary spell that we haven't got?
Oh, we can't tease people like that.
To me, suggestions for Hereditary spells. No, honestly, I think once the Orison mechanic was decided, this was always going to be the one. It was just a matter of casting value, how many tokens, what value. You know, maybe if there's updates or there's changes, it might be to create 1 token lower value, create 3 tokens much higher value, something like that. But for me, it's just if you're taking Druidism Master, you have nothing to do in your first magic phase or 2 a lot of the time. You know, you're throwing stones from across the board and maybe killing like a chaff. So now you have something to throw those dice at in turn 1 that feels effective. And it's always good, you know, for players, for feeling good while you're playing the game, you want them to feel like they have something to do, and this is something to do in turn 1 and 2. And if your opponent lets it off, like you said, they're making a big mistake. Going into, you know, turn 2 with 6 Orison tokens could be devastating to the other guy. Going into turn 2 with 3, not as scary. So
agreed. And it's again pretty much once you've got the head around the Orison sort of idea, it's pretty simple as a concept. And so that's pretty cool. I quite like that. We're not delving into explaining this and this and this and this. Just yet for anything really, so that's kind of cool. I quite like that.
Do you want to talk about Ordus Minister as well?
Okay, sure. Topic? So we'll dot around and we'll come back. So Ordus Minister. So this is similar to another thing we're going to come into. Banneret is just an upgrade for
champions.
champions. So the champions are a little bit more noble, I guess, in that sort of regard. And that this is they gain a health point. Was another thing I nearly forgot about last time. And they become an Ordus Minister, and Ordus Ministers can regain. Is it raise or so raise a health point on their unit. Is it just their unit?
Start of every friendly magic phase.
Inside the monarch's unit. Yeah. So that's cool. I mean, there are a lot of initially you're like, whoa, that's mental, that's mental. But then these caveats that come in that last sentence, can't use Fountain of Youth on it. Makes it a lot better. So I like that there's a little.
And you can't raise a champion as well, which is obviously a big thing with armies like VC. You know, like they obviously have certain tactics they use when they bring their champion back and keep that Saurian cowboy busy for the entire game, so that they can't do that tactic with this, which I think is an important differential.
And it adds that magical feel, I guess. The bit in between the regular knights and the Fae, I think it's quite sort of like gives you three different things.
And usually the units that have access to the Ordos Ministers are also the Orison units, so they're your guys who are helping to buff other units, and they can kind of heal themselves, but they're definitely not of the same caliber as the Courage units, the Knight units that we're all used to. So it's a fun in-between, just like you were saying, it's in-between Peasant, in-between Knight. It's sort of this middle ground that has a lot more utility than just point-and-click charge or tar pit.
And so far, I mean, from our one battle, we didn't find that get very much game breaking at all, especially with the caveats that you've got. We thought it was just quite a nice thing.
Did you guys try Penitent Knight?
You had.
I had
that unit.
Which she did come up, and so it was really good.
It was massive in the context of the battle we used. I think it really. I mean, obviously. For you, Ludaman, you haven't seen our battle. The viewers will have seen our battle. So, I mean, there was an occasion where a big unit of peasants charged into the flank of a Penitent Knight unit.
Oh, that's fun.
on the first turn of that combat, the peasant unit managed to take out the back rank of the Penitent Knights. But because of this rule, the Penitent Knights got a knight back and ended up being able to have 2 attacks against the peasants in the second turn of combat instead of just one, which held them up again, which meant more support could come in to help the Penitent Knights, etc. It was pretty effective. Pretty effective, actually.
Yeah, it was cool. It's cool. I will put a caveat on there as well for people that haven't watched it, that I did put the damsel in that unit, which is a no-no. But yes. Anyway, we literally got to the end and go, because they ended up crumbling, and we were like, so does the damsel crumble?
And that isn't even a KOE mistake. That's just us getting unstable.
So that was funny. But and there are certain things. So as well as these units that we'll get, or obviously we'll see them later, they do have things like unstable or fearless and things with them to sort of give them that reason why that they would have that as an option. And stuff. So it's not just on every unit you could do this, but only on some. And similarly, on some units, instead of getting an Ordos Minister, you can have a banneret, which was really cool. And I've got loads of Kingdom of Equitaine models. I have loads of banners randomly in my thing anyway. So this was wicked. This was really, really cool. And as an idea. So again, the champion gets an extra health point, which I think is nice, up to maximum of 3. And there are some units with 3 that don't benefit from that. So that's cool. Can take another banner, which is class anyway. It gets another +1 to combat score, and can be chosen as the one refusing the duel. So it doesn't get the combat, a bit like a BSB in that regard as well. Again, pretty simple. It just basically allows you to have a extra banner and combat res and stuff. It's pretty simple, and I liked it. It's very Equitaine feel. It did feel very cool.
Yeah, I mean, this champion is slightly more important to the unit than a normal champion. I.e., if he refuses a duel, the unit is going to suffer a little bit more than a normal champion would. But that's because he's that much better than a normal champion. So
yeah, for me, both the Banneret and the Ordos Minister are sort of the extra fluff that we're getting, the extra background that we're getting in the lab versus the slim book. if you looked in the forums during the spoilers, Tacky did a whole story about the Knight Banneret and how he was chosen from like his heroics at a tournament. You know, you think about the Ordos ministers being basically these sort of like Friar Tuck guys that have these healing abilities that are going out with the knight. So it's like, it's just extra stuff that makes it less, you know, 16% chance of hitting and, you know, 33% chance to hit, and more of like, you're actually there for the battle. And that's what I really like.
And I think, I mean, even up to now in this book, you're definitely getting a lot of a fluffy feel from the rules as well. It's really easy to put Knight Banneret as a model on there and really feel like you've got a model that is Knight Banneret, have like conversions and stuff like that. Same with Ordos Minister and the Orison. You've got different tokens, so you can add different conversion things for that, like to make it along with your theme. So you're already starting to feel how much of the theme focus there was, and that there are obviously every lab has a theme and stuff, but this is a whole army. You're really getting that sort of feel, I think. More than some of the others, but in a really positive way. You can see how easily the rules apply to fluff, if you get what I mean, which is quite nice. I really liked, and motivates me more to play for sure. Personally, anyway, I know it's different for people, but anyway, sorry. We're not Sainted. So Sainted is a one of a kind basic upgrade for a lord, basically.
A damsel can also be a sainted.
Oh yeah, sure. And we found actually that's a good point actually, because we found that having it as an option for both, like it gives good options for both, but it isn't just for one. It isn't an obvious one for one. So like you can't be a. Oh no, you can. Sorry. So the Discipline 9 is really good, on a damsel from 7 to 9. That's an obvious one. But obviously the damsel doesn't want +1 attack, +1 offensive skill. So
she might do.
She might. Battle damsel, get her in. Gives you Orison +1, so it gives you that as a thing, which is great. So part of everything we've talked about. Fearless is an interesting one to put in there, with knights not being able to flee. It's a very, very interesting thing, and Fearless comes up much more than I thought it would in this book. Which again played a part in our battle, because I didn't necessarily want to come up with some of my units because I know they had Fearless, and I was like, well, I can't take a charge from that and that. So I think Fearless is one of those ones to definitely look out for, and I guess with this, because there are so many different rules that are added onto this, it could be missed. So definitely for people looking at this, look at the units and see which ones have Fearless and not, because there's a surprising amount that do, for me personally. So that's interesting. More from the Saint, it gives you extra magic items, and the biggest thing from this is that you always are under the influence of Holy Strike, Holy Shield, and Holy Wrath, which are all the Orison things, which is awesome. That's something that's really, really powerful and really, really good, and really makes you feel like this lord means business, right?
I think the important thing to remember about this is the very first sentence of the rule: one of a kind.
One.
Literally. So before you start panicking, oh my gosh, this is an amazing upgrade. For one, it's one of a kind, so there's only one model on the board with this. And two, it tends to be a little bit expensive, as it probably should be. So you know, it's your massive upgrade.
What I want to jump in here on this, because this is probably one of my favorite things in the whole book, is, you know, like I said, I started playing some version of Knights in Shining Armor armies. I think I was talking to you guys before the game, when I was 11 years old. So, you know, like 1996 or something, I started with this. And there was this backstory of these knights, like, you know, going on these amazing quests, slaying dragons, slaying wyverns, you know, like fighting orc warlords. And they would get to the end and they would sip from the grail, and then they would get weapon skill 5 and 2 attack. And so it was like, you had this incredible fluff with this total letdown rule that we basically didn't even play for like the last 4 years of the Slim book, because the questing oath was better. It was just better. You got your +1 to hit. You got the bastard sword. So what we have here is one in the whole army. There is no such thing as a Grail Knight. There's the Sainted, and it can be a knight who completed the quest. It can be a damsel who completed the quest. It could even be a peasant who worked his way up to a men-at-arms sergeant, who then went off and, you know, did some incredible task, and he became a saint of the lady. And there's supposed to be, you know, a handful of them in all of Equitaine, not, you know, units of 9 in every single army. You get what you pay for. The idea, you know, design-wise, these guys are supposed to be that much underneath a chosen lord. And if they're spec'd specifically for killing monsters, they should be that much better than a chosen lord at killing monsters, but then lower than him at basically everything else. And I feel like, you know, I've been through every possible combination of common magic items, the ones from this book, or enchanted items, every mount that you can have, every weapon loadout you can have. And I feel like they might have gotten this better than almost anything else in the whole book. He really feels strong. He feels like you get the feeling of this, like, you know, Galahad, Gawain sort of character.
Very much.
He completed his quest, but he's also not a game-breaking character. You know, literally in all of the playtest games I've played, he has never been the model on the board that's won the game. It's always been, you know, the block of peasants that held for the extra turn that they shouldn't, or the questing knights that held for 5 turns of combat against all odds. And this guy does his point sometimes, and sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he gets killed by a dread elf, like hero with a potion of strength in 1 round of combat.
Well, I guess it's important to say as well that this guy, that doesn't give him extra. It gives him +1 ages, so it's going to be 5 up, but only gets the extra stuff because he's got courage at this point. So he's going to be only gets the extra ages if he has no armor save. So I guess if you're not putting a lot of armor, which is a bit silly because you've got so much option to, you could sort of equivalent it to a bit of a Destiny's Call guy, so a bit lucky. But if you do put armor on, he's normally going to have armor, so he's not going to have that better ages save. So he's not the most defensive person. I think +1 gives him defensive skill 7 as well, so there are things that have more than that are going to hit him quite hard and stuff. He's still a human, so he's only res 4, like this sort of thing. So he's not the most tanky, even with all that extra stuff, and he's not the most killy. So like he does have a lot of options. Having +1 to hit, +1 to attack, +1 to offensive skill, and you've on the auras and stuff is obviously amazing. But he is. Yeah, like you said, he sort of feels like he's strong and you can do stuff with him, but you do have to be a bit careful as well. Yeah. So, I thought it was a good balance to start off with. There's a lot of rules in there to add in for people, so it's one to be... You definitely have to get head round the sainted person and how many extra rules he has.
Your friends will probably be annoyed the first couple of games when they're like,
he has that?
And you're like, no, he gets all the Oracents all the time. Don't even worry about it. It's no big deal.
And his unit can have 1 added on as well. So, you know.
Well,
luckily we both had 1, so it was fine in that one.
Oh, there you go.
It was okay for us. But yeah, I mean that goes. I'm gonna go on your big dude, and that's pretty cool. Moving down, the last 2 things they're pretty self-explanatory. To be fair, Fey Spirit is more of a Fey sort of feel to this book, and there's a section actually on that sort of thing as well. So just basically giving fearless magical attacks and damsels, and saying that damsels can join them as well, which is cool. Gallantry is basically for anything that's very in my head it's flying, but I'm not sure it's just flying, but really good movement stuff. So it gives you basically, instead of having if we sort of go back up to the top, you can see they sort of scrapped having a gallantry section for giving them gallantry points. So that's just basically max 6, is it? 7.
It was funny actually, because when we were list building together before the battle, it was quite late on that Lucky Sixes you realised you were over the gallantry limit.
By 1.
Because obviously we didn't at that stage we didn't have something like New Recruit to tell us this is illegal. We had to actually go old school on working out what was legal and what wasn't at this stage. You had to do a bit of tweaking because of gallantry.
Yeah,
which,
but
to be fair, was easy enough to do.
Yeah.
It was
that and the damsel and the penitence. That sounds like cheating to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just have to be nice about it, and then
I'm glad someone agrees with me before I've even said it.
But cheaters never prosper, as you'll see from the thing. So anyway, not too much, not worth going too much into. It's just basically a different type of unit cap, but something to be aware of in the list building stage. Lance formation. This is one I think I like it. However, I think the
easy.
Yeah. So let's say what it is. So you get your supporting attacks are increased by 1. Fighting extra rank. That's awesome because there's a lot of things that have
that's stuff we're used to.
Yeah, that's really cool stuff. Can be 3 or 4. I like that as a movement as well to it. And then
that's cool.
You count as being in line formation, so you would get an extra thing of fighting extra rank, and only needs to be 3 wide. But I guess it's the connotation of being in line formation and not getting those ranks to remember, because that's a very different.
The combat res.
That's a very different concept to before, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because there are, like say, with the bannerets and special banners and things like that. There are ways of getting the combat res, which is nice, but it's something to be aware of that if you are ranking them up in 3 or 4 wide, they don't count as ranks. So it's something that I think could catch people out, especially early on when they're doing it. So this is warning, guys. Be very careful of how you're using this and stuff. But saying that,
just the one thing I'll say here is you're going to notice your charges feel stronger. You can do more damage. You're not going to have rubber lance. But if you're getting charged, or if you're on to round 2 or 3, it's much harder to win those fights now. Whereas before, sometimes against strength 5 unit, if you were packing +3 rank bonus and you had that Aegis save active, you were sitting pretty and you could hold for 2 or 3 turns until the other cavalry arrived. It's not going to happen now. You're probably going to get broken on that second turn if you aren't breaking them, or if you don't have some support ready to go.
Yeah, no. So something to be aware of, I think, for sure. But a pretty nice change, and it gives you that. I think last time it was fighting extra rank on the charge or something, but you have that all the time. So there is a trade-off. There is a good trade-off for there. So and interesting that four models is good for it as well. I'm quite liking the idea of that.
There's 2 sneaky tricks I like with the main core unit, the Feudal Knights. There's taking them 5x3, which will still give them fighting extra rank, so all 15 are fighting, but then you actually do get your +2 rank bonus because you're not in line formation.
Yeah.
So that's a fun little trick. And then you could also go take the 15 Knights, stick a character in there for 16, and go 4x4, all of them attack, and that's a big tough unit on the charge. It's pretty solid for a core unit.
Yeah, very much so. And one of the best things about being 3 is that you limit attacks coming back at you anyway as well. So that so there's lots to play around with, and I think a lot of personal preference as well. So that's quite cool.
And things that you can change mid-battle as well. Like you can literally change depending on what you're going against and when. I like it.
Bastard Sword, something that didn't come up in ours because we didn't look at that sort of thing, although we do like it. The biggest change, I guess, is that it's just +1 strength as standard. No AP with that as well, so it's just +1 strength. Remember, guys. In the first round of combat, you can use it as a light lance or spear. I think that was from before. That's come over as well. And just as a caveat, all rank and file models in the unit must use the weapon in the same way when they choose it.
It's been simplified a bit. I think it's good.
Yeah. Not much more to talk about, but just I guess remembering that there's no AP. Otherwise, simple and I guess dulled down a little bit, but that's because there's a lot more.
Yeah, although now you don't lose your agility now, whereas before you kind of did. So
I think just less having your cake and eating it too these days. You're choosing, do you want the strength or do you want the AP? Do you want the agility or do you want the extra power? Now, like before, it was you basically got everything you needed and you had a high point cost. And I mean, let's be honest, a lot of the games with that slim KOE book were kind of boring. It was like their Duke Nukem flying killer got your army, or you slowly ground them down in some of the most boring combats in all of the 9th Age. We're past that now.
We're past, yes. We've moved on. We've got trade-offs and everything. As I said, in case you didn't read it, it does say instead. So it's either +1 strength all the time, or a light lance and spear, it's not on top of that. +1 strength isn't on top of that bonus as well. So that's
so the light lance is a nice little fun one to make sure you remember with the questing knights, which sometimes I would forget, honestly, in my playtesting games. I'd charge in, I'd be like, oh, I'm only AP1. And they'd be like, no, you're not. It's a light lance. And I'd be like, thank you. Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, but a nice one, and I say a bit of versatility as well for that as well. So the knightly princesses are the vowels essentially from before. There are, I think, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep. So we'll do the first 5. Let's see if I can do it. Yes.
And each character can generally, I mean, I think I'm right in saying, can have one of these. You can't have more than one on a single character.
And as you can see there, they're all one of a kind as well, so very similar to that. So we'll go through them all quickly because we don't want to do too long on each one. Excellence is fighting in a duel. It's very duelist sort of based, +2 AP, which is cool.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Forbearance. Forbearance, yeah.
Distracting.
Can read. Distracting, but not in the first round.
Yeah, that's a tricky one.
Not going to lie, I thought this was crap.
Okay, hang on. I did too. And then one of the playtesters opened my eyes to the majesty of it.
Tell us.
If you go in with a pretty well-armored character with forbearance, and you charge into a unit that's like a killer unit. Like let's take Dark Elf Dread Knights, or Dread Elf Dread Knights. Sorry, I gotta get out of those habits. But Dread Elf Dread Knight, you go into that unit and you challenge first round because you're charging in. You got them. You can kill that champion, and then coming out of that champion fight or that character fight, now you're distracting for the rest of the round. And there was one guy who was holding off the most powerful Death Stars in the enemy army with a single sainted guy with forbearance because nobody could take him down once he was into combat.
So this one has layers, that's what we're saying.
There are plays, but they're extremely boring plays, and I would never take them.
And of course, it is only 30 points, so it's not like you're breaking the bank to take it as well. So, 30 points for distracting is actually very cost-effective. The fact that it isn't the first round of combat is something you just have to work out to your advantage.
Generosity as a different commanding presence for ordeal units, and banneret becomes 0-3. One thing we didn't mention when we mentioned that is only 0-2, so you can only have on all your units 2 extra banners on units. So this one increases it to 3, so more of a, I guess, army
shaping unit
sort of thing, and anything people want to do with ordeal. Ordeal mainly come in on predominantly come in on peasant based units, so if you want a peasant based, which you definitely can do with this book, then that's probably for you. Justice, so
this is the one I took.
Yeah, so basically if your unit takes wounds, you get to attack back maximum of 3 times
initiative step 0
for each one that's died at initiative step 0. Obviously,
unfortunately for me, didn't come into effect
if
my
your
guy who had it
dies,
was the one who died first.
And he dies twice, maybe as well. If your guy's not there, or for any reason he's not in combat at the end of the combat, then that can't happen. Otherwise, it's quite good.
My guy was too noble. Basically, he took the hits himself rather than let his guys die. Wrong.
Oh, that was a good play on your opponent's part.
All bad play on mine. Yeah.
But no, an interesting one, quite a nice one. Valor, fearless again, and multiple wounds 2 against fear. So, like, you going after monster killer, right? So that's this that guy. Doesn't care, sort of thing. Honor, which my guy had, so +2 advance on the charge and +2 attacks on the charge, but only if you're looking at the front. Which is another thing that came up, which is interesting. But so basically he wants to take things on head on. Don't worry about it. Let's go, mofo, sort of thing, which was cool. And then the last one, Faith. I've mentioned it slightly earlier. So intertwined with the Orison rule, if Orison ministers become 0-3, again, like the banneret, they were 0-2, so a themed based thing. But also, if you target this unit with an Orison token, you basically get one back, so it's like a free go. This I think is very strong. With everything coming, I think this is very strong.
I've been using it on my battle standard bearer and my questing my unit every game, and I love it. Although, you know, it's funny, you get to the later turns and you end up going like, oh man, like I don't even know if the Orisons are going to save me here when you get super surrounded. So, but it is nice. It's nice.
I agree. I had it on my BSB as well. So.
No, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I can see this being a really, really good rule. And with all the other Orison things, I think this will, for some people that are really good at writing lists, I think this could be like quite a big thing to include. So I can see that for me, that's probably genuinely one of the most powerful ones because of the Orison mechanics and stuff. So I wouldn't expect that to stay 35, is my personal opinion. But while it is, use it, guys.
Well, so here's the funny thing. I didn't expect that. I've been playing it. Nobody else was playing it, and it went down before the launch. It was more expensive when I was purchasing it. So there you go.
Well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm over-egging it, but I can't see it not being in one of my lists.
No, it's really good. It's going to go up.
Right, so moving on to special items. So, I mean, quite a lot of... I guess we've talked about them more than there are lots of rules, but again, with having vows and having all those things, I think a decent amount that aren't too complicated on themselves, but that together there'll be quite a lot to remember to start off with. So again, it's getting your head around them to start off with, and knowing what and remembering what you've got and what little things they come with. So
can I lead off on the Banebreaker?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Don't get charged.
that makes sense.
That's all I need to say.
Yeah.
Over to you guys.
Yeah, no, that's it. I don't think there's anything more to say. Magical attacks as well, but it's awesome. It's really good. Don't get charged.
I think it's cheap for what it does, but don't get charged. Yeah.
I think perhaps because it's only in devastating charge. I don't think it's cheap.
No, I guess not. If it was like if you've charged and then combats afterwards, you still get it. No, it's only on the turn you charge.
Yeah.
So I think that's why it's that cheap.
I think it's also why honors costed the way it is at 65. Like you look at the different, if you look at those, you're looking at honor being expensive, but that's because you can get a sainted character with 7 attacks, charging with strength 7, AP 4, and D3 wounds. That's brutal.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But yeah, so and I guess you could say that with being in Kingdom of Equitaine, you have a really good chance. You have more chance than most armies to charge. I still think because it's devastating charge, I think it's pretty fair costed, to be fair. Warsong's Sting. I should say Banebreaker's just on a lance. Warsong Sting's just on a lance. And this one is a duel based. If you're fighting a duel, single enemy unit engaged with wielders front facing when allocating close combat attacks with this weapon.
It's the classic Hadouken, isn't it?
Give you a
smash through a line and
mini bolt thrower, right? It's what it is.
I mean, I just assume it's a shish kebab, and then you hold them over the fires.
Interesting that it's not a one use only thing. I know it's 40 points, but that interested me that you could use it every single round. So that'll be. I mean, this will really help you with those longer, those brick units. I think. So if you're planning on putting someone in a unit to help out deal with those bricks, this is really going to help.
Just don't stand in front of him, lads. Yeah. Just make way.
Was it out of arc? Stay out of arc.
Exactly.
That's what you need to do. Come on. Mortal Reminder, +1 strength, +1 AP, magical for halberd and great weapons, simple, effective,
cool. Unfair, unfair as well.
And fear. Yeah, there we go.
Which means you can combine it with your
Orison to get some
terror-based stuff.
Terror shenanigans. Really good stuff.
Tristan's Resolve, so +1 attack and magical attacks, +1 AP. After a successful hit, may discard one of the hits with his weapon and choose an enchanted weapon carried by the model attacking it. So this is really interesting. Probably quite niche, the most niche out of them four for sure. But you want to be challenging people. You want to be getting someone with a good weapon and use it against them, basically.
So this is the one. hangover from the Slim book as we get Tristan's Resolve sticking around. The only difference is it's not +1 strength anymore because you can put it on a bastard sword, so it can be +1 strength again.
Yeah.
But I've always really liked this one. I played it in the Slim book. I feel like the +1 attack and the ability to break weapons gives you a good chance of telling bedtime stories to even the toughest of enemy characters, while your unit does the work that you aren't able to do. But now that you have Excellence, you can pop that sucker up to AP4 on the charge, AP3 normal turns in challenges, and your character becomes pretty scary now.
Yeah.
So I've been using this one on my Saint, and I really like it.
Okay, cool, yeah.
And it feels fluffy, too. I like the idea of the duelist. You know,
Yeah.
I can't get the Princess Bride out of my head. I just want Inigo Montoya and the
Great
Jet
film.
Pirate Roberts.
Yeah.
Oh, don't get him started.
I guess probably more of a nuanced one as well, more subtle than the other ones, being like Devastating Charge and all that stuff. So it a bit flavour for the occasion, sort of thing. Going down to armour, so there's only 2 in armour. There's one that's quite an expensive one, +1 armour and re-roll as well, which is good. But you can only have a Aegis 5+ as a maximum. So it's good. It is expensive, so you're gonna really have to make sure everything else is in place on that character. But quite a good one. I think that will come down a little bit. I can't see that staying at 100, but again, that's my own thought. But we'll see.
Especially as it's dominant as well. I think because it's dominant as well, it might have to come down a little bit to make it popular. Especially if you compare it to the Resplendent Panoply.
Yeah, which
I think
is awesome.
Is a kind of like that'll appear fairly often. I think
+2 armor basically allows you to have those great weapons and 2-handed weapons on your mounted characters. So yeah, simple, effective. 40 points, pretty workable,
cost effective,
and stuff. As
you
well.
can't put it on your Hippogriff, guy.
You can't.
But
which again, I tried in this building, so we get. I can't do that. I'm gallantry over. Oh my goodness. Anyway, artifacts. Not too many.
You were always going to take the chalice, no matter what it did, weren't you?
Yeah, I like this. Magic Resistance 1 is okay, but the main thing is the getting a Veil token every time you get targeted by a spell or attribute. I think that's really good. Really, really good.
Yeah.
I guess it depends where you put your damsel. But it does, really. Again, making that you have options to make like a big unit of lances where they're gonna be targeted by magic, and if they are not only magic resistance 1, every time they do get something through, they get a token. So I liked it. I liked it. 25 points.
The only issue I can
cheap
see
as well.
with the magic resistance is that magic resistance tends to put your opponent off of casting on them anyway. So maybe it's a bit of a catch-22. Like you're dissuading people from casting on them, and you're also not getting a benefit because they won't. But it is.
I guess it depends where you put the unit you put them on. If they're the Death Star, then they're going to be.
Yeah, and how much you don't want them to be targeted. Yeah.
So, and it's only with Orison X. So that's, depending on how you're doing it. Black Knight Tabard, you had this one.
I did, yes. I liked it. It is one use only for obvious reasons, as we'll say. It must be activated when the bearer's model reaches 0 health points. Basically, you just come back with 1 HP. But at the time that you are reduced to 0. So any attacks after that still happen, which we did find out in our battle.
So you got revived.
A certain harnessed beast decided to step up to the plate after Black Tabard had been activated. But I like it because it's like a failsafe. Especially if you're attacking after your opponent, there's a chance that you can still issue your Uber attacks even after you've technically been killed. So.
Yeah, I always liked it in the Slim book. That's the other carryover besides Tristan's Resolve and the Oriflamme. I think the big key there is Hippogriff Dukes, Hippogriff Lords, and getting one-shotted with a cannon. Now you're back to life, and you got Druidism, so there's a good chance you really do get a second chance to be effective.
I like it. Banners, which obviously there are the most of in the book, I quite like, especially I guess with Banner it always had to be, right? Oriflamme, Fear, while in combat. I think that was a thing that's added in late, but again, that's good, especially with the extra terror stuff. And the enemy can't use rally around the flag. So this is going to be on the unit that you want to just push
through your enemy
and give as little chance for them holding as possible, which I like. Good, it's expensive, but it's good. So it needs to be.
It can't be taken by core, but that's probably fine.
Yeah, very much so. Aspirants Elan. Elan? Is that how you say it? Ellen?
Elan?
Elan? Like flan?
Flan, Elan. I'm not sure.
Sure. But basically, this is a really interesting one. It nullifies to a certain extent failed charges, basically. So you need all these three things in place. So engaged in the front facing, not charging now, and you have failed to charge before. Encourages you as a Kingdom of Equitaine player to charge.
I think go for the double 6 charge.
Yes.
Because if you don't get it, you'll have all these bonuses.
Yeah, so you get basically get what a lance is.
This is your vanguard unit. This is your forlorn hope, the unit that you send in front of everything else to smash through, probably die, but it'll be effective whether you charge or not. You know.
Yeah, I quite like that as well. Banner Roland +1 Aegis, max 4 against ranged attacks, and can't use standard shoot. I think this was in the last book in some regards as well.
Don't battle Infernal Dwarves without it.
Yeah.
You don't want to. Yeah. You got to have that guy.
5 points cheaper than it used to be. There you go. There's my points.
Here we go. We've done it.
Done
the comparison.
But it does exactly the same thing, so it's all good.
Cavalry Banner, really simple. +1 combat score if you have 3 full ranks. So again, this is similar to what I said before about line formation. This is going to be in your line formation chaps, where they're 3 wide and have 5 ranks, whatever. And it's 3 full ranks, so it's not additional ranks as well. So you're likely to have that if you're putting them in that thing. So encourages you to go slimmer and longer. Which
it's for your units of 15, isn't it, as opposed to your units of 12. You know, where you're really going to make use of that extra rank.
It's a fun one to sneak in on a battle standard bearer too, if your points allow for it. Because if things go wrong and you need to slip out of the unit, you could even join peasants and give yourself that +1 combat result. So
absolutely.
Sneaky little trick.
Yeah, and 15 points is cheap and cheerful. Ordo Blessed Banner, basically the Heritable.
Extra way of getting the breath off.
So
I like that. I like that. That's good.
Don't leave home without it. Love it.
Yeah, man. Yeah, really good. And again, another way of getting 2 dice. If you've got 2 dice left at the end, just to get something.
If you don't want to risk casting that hereditary on a 6 up with your master, then just cast it via this and get it off on a power level 4.
So this is going to be one of the banes of enemies you play against, I think. This one. But pretty good. It is 50 points as well, so you're paying for it. So I like it.
Yeah, I think it has to be at that amount really, because it is a very utility last spell of the phase kind of thing.
But and again, fairly straightforward. There's nothing in there that's really overly complicated. I guess the revive one's probably the most complicated with that, but that was already there anyway. So I like them, and they're all different. So it's very cool.
Yeah.
Right.
No surprises in army organisation, which I like. There's nothing quirky in there. I don't think it's necessary anyway in this book. So I was pleased to see it was a fairly standard army organisation. Yeah,
and as we said before, the gallantry is not a unit specification thing. It's more of a unit by unit one. So that's cool.
Damsel leading the way.
Leading the way. Discipline 7, probably the biggest drawback of her. I don't think she was Discipline 8 before, so it's not something that's new. It's just something to go on. Oh, comparison.
Yeah, she was 7 before.
Yeah. So has the Orison, one of the big things, Adept Master, and a few of the mounts we'll get onto later as well. Pretty standard, right? Honesty.
She has lost magic resistance inherently.
Yes.
She would need the chalice in order to get that. No.
But has honesty, so magical attacks against her have better Aegis against. So, it swings around about.
Yeah, she starts with Aegis 5 up rather than 6 up before, which is pretty handy. You put her on a phase steed, you're always at 4 up already without spending any points.
That's awesome. And
one thing actually that we weren't sure about with the whole stand behind, and this is probably more of a rulebook question, but while you're here and we've got another opinion to go for, if you have your damsel at stand behind in the second rank of a unit, can she still cast missiles, or does she have no line of sight?
She can. Because missiles follow the rules for shooting, you draw line of sight from the front rank. Yeah.
Great.
Oh, good.
That's how we played it. But yeah, for some reason, we had a bit of a brain fart and couldn't figure it out at the time.
The one thing that's always been tricky for me is making use of the Druidism Master of Stone, because you do still need line of sight because it's a missile, even though you can draw your range from impassable terrain.
Sure.
But you still do need to keep that line of sight, which is something that sometimes when you're trying to point your, lance of powerful knights this way, but you want to shoot the guy this way, it doesn't always work out. So.
But no real bells and whistles on that. I guess, stand behind from Beloved, but nothing too new and major.
You can get sainted, and obviously, as we've said, half of that is combat buffs that she probably won't need. But then the Discipline 9 is what you're paying for, and that's why the sainted version on her is quite a lot cheaper than it is on the Lord.
There are some fun little tricks. I tried a game with 5 Pegasus Knights and a Sainted Damsel in the back rank with Hero's Heart. And, then you're still getting 2 Strength 5 AP 3 hits going through that usually are hitting on 2s. So it's a little, little something extra for 60 points. Not so bad.
Yeah, that's quite fun. I like that. The Lord itself. So we've talked about most of the things that we've got. So it's going to have a knightly principle, can be a BSB. So the Lord could be a BSB, which is cool. I guess you're sort of looking at this, and it's predominantly an old paladin stat. So like the hero stats wise. However, you've got Sainted, which obviously gives all those boosts and everything. You've got Paladin, which is an additional one. However, cannot be the leader if he's a paladin, which is quite a big thing, and probably why Paladin's at 30 points for what seemingly is a very, very good upgrade. So Divine Attacks, Orison, and changes from Courage, which is the no armor save, to Honesty, which is against magical attacks. So this is going to be a combat guy, but he's not your leader. He can't be your leader as part of it, which is a massive, massive drawback of doing that, because you're going to be pumping so much into it. Potentially having a Sainted Paladin is going to be so many points, but isn't going to be a general, so you're going to need that elsewhere from it as well. I like that he can't be a leader. It's annoying, but I like it. It gives that drawback to something that is a very, very nice thing. So you've got.
I think the fact that you've got the divine attacks in there as well is massive.
So good.
That's very tasty. And in terms, I know you said in terms of stats, he's more of your hero level, if such a thing exists. But stats-wise, he's actually the same as the Duke.
He was anyway. Okay.
Actually, exactly the same. But points-wise, he's slightly cheaper than the original Duke and a bit more than the Paladin. So he's a combination of both with better stats, I think. So
sure, and especially if you haven't Sainted and stuff. Choice of weapons, choice of things, but otherwise, that's probably the biggest thing on the Equitaine Lord is the additional option of Paladin, as the things compared to the other things we've said.
Yeah, and if you do boost them with Sainted or Paladin, you get access to a few different mounts as well, which is cool. And obviously they come up more with Fey edition going on.
If you haven't read the post about the Paladin and the spoiler thread, Tacky did another piece of background where he's a vampire hunter. That's kind of the fluff on him now is he's sort of the Witcher of the Kingdom of Equitaine, where he's not quite a knight anymore. He's not quite an agent of the Ordos. He's like very specially trained to go hunt down vampires and witches and like sort of supernatural threats. So cool fluff choice. And if you got a lot of demon players in your meta, you probably don't want to leave home without him and the Banebreaker Lance and have some fun.
Yeah, very much so, very much so. Okay, so the next one is your most customizable. One we really liked as a concept, your folk hero, your average Joe that's slightly above average. To start off with, so the old Castellan, right? What was called that? There's a Castellan upgrade, I think, isn't there? So this is your guy on foot to start off with, and can choose 1 to 2 hero traits. So man of the people, right? Man of the people.
Yeah, I completely balls this up with my folk hero. I totally chose 2 that were didn't work well together and didn't suit my army. So, I think I just got really excited by the fact I could choose 2 and didn't think about how they fitted in my army at all. But, it's exciting, and that's what half of the reason for a new book is. So,
But yeah, so I mean, looking at it comes with options, can be mounted and stuff like that. So you can customize it normally that way. Can be sainted as well, so you can have this folk hero, like as you said before, that has risen through the ranks, and it really is the top of the dogs. From that point of view. Then you've got the heroic traits. So you can have 1 to 2 of these, which is cool as well. Bannerman, +1 attack, but BSB. Quinn, which is an adept with witchcraft, and 120 plus. So if we go up slightly, so you're looking at about 200 points, which is about right for an adept anyway as well.
Yeah.
So that's interesting sort of way. Then you've got March to the Beat, which is musician, and Wizard Apprentice, choosing from divination. So is that scrying?
No, that's Know Thy Enemy.
Know Thy Enemy, okay, fair play.
Which is a very useful little one to have, actually.
Yeah,
so.
very much sometimes you really need that +2 agility.
Definitely.
Cleric, the second most expensive one, sorry.
I wish I hadn't taken that. I couldn't get my head around it at all.
So you change the ordeal, so the ordeal is maximum 5 up, and in that regard.
Don't take it when you've got a reliquary in your same unit, for goodness sake. There's just no point.
But yeah, it gives you an extra chance, extra origin token in the first place, but also an extra chance to cast some buffs. Then Castellan at the end, +1 attack, +1 offensive, +1 defensive, and Bastard Sword. Relatively, I mean, they starts with 1 attack, right? So it's not a lot. But Bannerman and Castellan, for example, takes you up to 3. Have different special items and stuff that can take you more. So there are lots of choice in there and very customizable. I think he's going to be a bit of a cult classic in this.
Yeah, I think so. I think he does what you want, literally, and or he does nothing because you've built him wrong.
Yeah. He was still a BSP.
He was still a BSP. That's correct.
Looking at the mounts, you got your Warhorse, which is pretty standard, strength 4, +2 armor, so pretty good. 816 movement. Heraldic Steed, so 40 by 40 here. And I guess it'd be important in this point to start mentioning base sizes and how some of them are different to before, so do be aware of that when you're doing it. The Heraldic Steed, so your flyer 1014. That's a pretty cool. That's a pretty quick guy in that regard. These are the old, I guess, sort of like light troops Pegasus Knight based from before. So the way I sort of looked at it is these were your combat pegs and your flying around pegs, your skirmishy pegs, which was cool as a differential. So these are your old sort of like Peg Knight bases. +2 armor, so better armor, more maneuverable, gallantry 1, and a lot faster. Strength
and a bit of hard target as well to help them out.
Impact hits was cool. I like that as a thing for them. Instead of having, compared to the other Pegasus, the Royal Pegasus, the 2 attacks. I thought that was quite a nice thing. Royal Pegasus is your beefier dude. He's not Vanguard and Fly 10, but he is Fly 816, +2 armor, hard target on both of them, which is cool, and 2 attacks rather than.
That's unusual to see hard target on that mount, actually, because the standard Pegasus doesn't have it, so that's a handy thing.
I think that's like a larger sort of design direction thing where they're trying to get this size of mount to have the hard target to be more enticing. You know, like you're looking at the changes now where the bigger size bases, the 50 by 75s and stuff, are coming with the towering presence. These guys have to bring something to the table, and I think you're going to see hard target a lot as a nice choice for characters. And I really do think like Paladin Lord with the Banebreaker on a Pegasus is going to be really scary for monster mash armies. You got that guy flying around. There's not a lot to fight that. So
exactly. And I guess the hard target allows him to go on his own instead of a unit as well when he wants to. Like we said, 50 by 50. So these Pegasus are on bigger bases. For that, it's not necessarily my cup of tea, but we're going to get onto that later.
We're going to get to it.
We're going to get to that later. So don't worry too much if you're like me and go like that. So just something to think about. But still got the Hippogriff, as well. As a big old dude. I liked him a lot. I don't know whether was he strength 6 before.
No, what he lost is the +1 attack on the charge, the devastating charge +1 attack, and what he gained is relentless,
which is
massive.
And we nearly forgot, and it nearly made a difference. And we remembered it.
His hand was in my hand. He shook my hand to say game. I took it, and then we let him go back.
We let him in.
Oh.
It was fantastic.
That's 3 counts of cheating I'm counting.
So many.
I know. I should have
many.
taken the hand and said, no, we're shook. It's game over.
Yeah.
We're done.
So many. It was fantastic. It was so good. So, like minimize. So is really, really good for your lone characters as well. That's going to be huge. Huge. So, really, really good. Definitely remember it, guys.
Preferably at the time before your opponent has celebrated the victory.
Yeah, you see the party poppers were out, weren't they?
They were.
Revered Unicorn.
Second victory lap.
So this is where your magic resistance comes in. 25 by 50, so it's on the same sort of base as the Unicorn before, I think, or one of them. Anyway.
Yeah, she's pretty much the same as she was.
Yeah, not too more manoeuvrable. And
no, her movement's changed. Slightly less speedy now.
Oh, okay, cool.
But essentially the same.
Loves a good forest as well. So that one. Fey Steed. So again, there's more access to this as well from the Lord characters and the stuff as well. It's giving that more of a option for Fey characters and things. Ghost Step, Fey Spirit, and the Breath Weapon.
Cool. Nice to have a breath weapon.
Yeah. On your thing. Otherwise, not too much more to say for them. They'll definitely fit customizable stuff. It's pretty good.
I think basically you've got a mount for every occasion, which is nice.
Yeah. And a lot of lists will take different ones, which is cool. Core. Feudal Knights. So the old Knights of the Realm. Now called Feudal Knights. 25 by 50 still. Don't worry about that. And... yeah, can have Knight Banneret. This is one of the Knight Banneret units. Pretty standard otherwise.
Yeah, rules-wise, stats-wise, they haven't changed at all. They're a little bit cheaper to take the main block of 6, and also a lot cheaper to take additional models, which I think is quite important for the fact that they are your core go-to option, really.
Yeah.
So
I think the only real challenge with them now is who's their Orison babysitter? Are you putting a damsel in the unit? Are you keeping some of the Ordo sergeants that we're about to look at nearby? How are you getting them the Orisons they're going to need to be effective? That's the tricky part.
But as they say on the tin, sort of thing. Ordo sergeants, so which something you mentioned. So they do come with Orison 0, which just basically means they can cast. It means they don't add any tokens. It just means they can cast it. I think these are going to be in a lot of lists because of that.
I think so.
I think these are good. You can choose Great Weapon or Light Lance for your own choice, and can be an Ordos Minister. So the more magical, I guess. These are old aspirants, but I feel like their role has changed quite dramatically.
Massively, and you've got hatred on them now, which they never used to have. You've also not got lance formation on them, which is quite an interesting thing. When you first spot that and see cavalry without lance formation in an Equitaine book, what have they done? But actually, lance formation isn't as much of a you have to do lance formation anymore. So I think it's important to have a unit that doesn't have lance formation, because it's just not as important. You don't have to do lance formation anymore. So I think this is a good addition.
To
have a unit like this that doesn't have lance formation.
And I haven't done the points, but I'm not sure. I don't know whether 15 feudal knights and 10 Ordo sergeants probably covers your cost, right? Your core. So that would be interesting.
It's close. I think you still need like a little unit of bowmen or something.
Yeah, a bit more.
Yeah. But yeah.
But if you went heavy on magic banners, you might be able to get it done.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. So I think you're going to see them quite a lot, and the 5 wide cav, as you said. With that, onto the lowborn. So lowborn levies the hand weapon shield, halberd, or spear and shield. Probably spears, but interesting for either of that really. Whatever your choice, you can get up to 50. So your big old bricks. You made quite a good combat.
Static combat res, yeah. I had static
res
combat res of
stack.
6, which is obviously very nice. And I don't think, as a unit, I don't think they inflicted a single wound in about 4 unit rounds of combat.
But they're not.
That is possibly because I chose them with shields, though. So that's probably my own fault.
True.
And also going up against a 2-up armor knight unit, they're not going to cause wounds. But the fact that I had a static combat res of 6 was why I was playing with it. Plus a BSB in there made it 7, and then obviously
and the 6-up Aegis, which is nice. So
I don't think I rolled that at any point in the battle. I definitely didn't roll any 6-up Aegis in the entire battle.
There we go.
For that whole unit.
No bells and whistles. Just
no.
Get your bodies in, boys.
Yeah.
Lowborn archers. Now there are bells and whistles on these chaps. We otherwise stat-wise the exact same. Come with either a longbow or a crossbow as before, 4+. However, they are accurate if they don't move, which makes them very, very good at hitting, which is a surprising thing, right? With longbows, anyway, this is not crossbows, but I think that's a really strong one. Depending on how many siege weapons you have later on as well, for how many you can take. Max 30. I think that was before anyway, wasn't it?
100 models in the army, but 30 in the unit.
Yeah, so and there is no model limit, so just pump all load of archers and get some high.
I suppose the fact is you've got a maximum of 3 units, so the maximum amount is you have in 90, so that kind of does the same job really.
Yeah, I think a lot could be said if you took 3 units of 24 in core 8x8x8, and we're just shooting 24. 4+ to hit at long range, strength 3 shots, you'd be obliterating most of the chaff, and armies like Dread Elves are not going to like seeing that across the table.
Absolutely.
No.
Possibly an argument for if they don't move, one of the best shooters in core around, which is interesting.
Yeah. They're good.
Yeah, very much so. Defensive stakes are still there in some regard. DT2. For anybody charging them in the front, so that's pretty good as well. So we didn't take them in R1.
We didn't,
but I think I might be trying them out for sure.
Every once in a while during the playtesting, when I would get really OCD, I would try and use like either defensive stakes or just playing with the point values of archers to try and get that perfect 1125 core. That's what those defensive stakes are for. If you're like, I'm at 1100. I can get it.
Interestingly, the defensive stakes, it doesn't actually include a wall terrain feature anymore.
No.
So it's very much player choice, I guess.
Yeah, this is sort of last minute change before launch. Is one of the concerns with the rule team is we're seeing a lot of like big rules for core shooting units coming out of the gate with some of the earlier labs, and it's like these are guys with bows. For the longbows, it kind of makes sense because longbows, just big rulebook wise, struggle to compete with crossbows. They're both 30-inch range.
Yeah.
One of them strength 4 AP1, the other one's not. So now if you have the option of hitting on 4s with 24 guys versus hitting on 5s with probably 16 guys, I'm thinking I'm going to go to 24.
Yeah.
So,
make him roll more for sure. But yeah, definitely, I can't tell too much of a difference between those two. I would say longbows probably edge it for me than crossbows, as you said there. But
you love your strength 4 AP1
mate,
shooting.
do you know what I mean? That's how good that is. Obviously, without the wall, they're not distracting, and they will die in droves. But but that's what they're there for, right? And that's it on special. So men at arms are now. I guess the forlorn chaps is the easiest comparison.
We didn't take these either, did we? So this one's a bit of a new discussion point for us. For some reason, neither of us looked at them. So we're actually looking at this probably for the first time now. So I speak for myself, maybe. So
yeah, well, I mean, these guys start off with Ordeal, but you can easily upgrade them to either Forlorn or Order Warders. So it is quite a flavourful unit. You can do whatever you want with it. If you want to go infantry heavy, this is going to be in every single list you want. And probably as we're going to get on to, work quite well with the Sacred Reliquary the most, but it depends whether you've got points and whether you want to put them in there as well.
Yeah, I love that you can take either the Banneret or the Ordos Minister. I think it's the only unit of the game that actually has the choice between both. I might be wrong.
So I think like these are low key a very strong way to play the army, like as a central sort of block. With Forlorns, so you're moving in, you have heavy armor shield, so you're starting with a 4-up save, right?
Yeah.
And you get parry even with your bastard sword. Well, there's a lot of troops in the game with AP3, and now all of a sudden you're bumping your Aegis up to 5-up, and if you're using an Orison, now you have 4-up Aegis saves on a whole unit of guys that are actually still hitting pretty hard. So they're a cool unit. The Ordo Wardens are also very cool, just because you're getting the Orisons, you're getting the Ordo Healer, and great weapons are nothing to sniff at a core unit with offensive 4, strength 4. You know, sort of your Imperial Guard.
Yeah, sure.
Definitely.
And like as you said, fairly customizable from that point of view as well. So all good there, all good there. Horses for courses there. Sacred Reliquary, which is one you took.
I was always going to have one. It was in almost before I read the rules, to be honest. You know.
So Orison, not a leader, war platform, your chap. Not too many attacks, not very high strength and stuff, but this is your buff thing that it's going to give to whatever it's in. Fearless, again, another bout of that as a good and bad thing. Fight in extra rank, minimize break tests again, which is cool, and you can add Orison token if you're in combat. So you're going to want this on your combat brick, or your brick of combat res, and just have it in combat as soon as possible and just leave it there. Really?
Yeah, and I'll say it again, but in reverse from the point I made earlier. Don't take it in the same unit as a BSB with Orison.
Does seem a little wasteful.
It does, doesn't it? You would think, you'd think you just wouldn't do it.
Okay, so moving on from the infantry and the things, this is where we really get onto the knights, and there are 7 different knight units. So I mean, this is your knight. We are Kingdom of Equitaine after all. So this was what. Before we get on to all the different types of knights, what was the thought process between taking up about 4, maybe 3 different knights to 7? Because that is obviously quite a lot of different units.
So I think one of the ideas was, you know, most cavalry is charge it with lances, big impact on the first turn, and if you didn't break them and you're not supporting them, that's it, they're toast. An Equitaine player wants to be able to play an all-cavalry army, so we wanted to give them tools to do that. So the first one we're looking at is our sort of replacement Grail Knights, heavy damage unit, can be even more powerful than old Grail Knights on the charge. These guys are really nasty.
Yes, and on the charge they're phenomenal. I
love the tricks on them. Damsel on a unicorn in there gives them all Forest Strider, so you can sneak right through, magical attack. Like, there's some nice little stuff you can do there. I really like a divination damsel in this unit. But, as we move through, you'll see, like, this role is, I mean, the entire time we were playtesting, these were hammer knights, because that's what they are. They're the glass hammer.
No, absolutely. With the devastating charge, it's quite obvious that they sort of become higher offensive than others as well. So they want to charge. They absolutely want to charge in the things.
Yeah.
We'll try.
I made the mistake of thinking that they were the new Grail Knights, but as you say, Grail Knights are just gone. Yeah. So forget that.
Yeah.
These are their own new entry. And I made the mistake of thinking they were Grail Knights.
So
I think that's
Res
where I went
3
wrong.
is their probably biggest downfall compared to some of the other knights as well. But they get in the charge. There's not many things that are attacking back. Knights Penitent. So these are your more defensive ones.
These are completely new, really, aren't they? These are one of the ones that definitely are completely new because of the little blue text there, the unstable.
Fearless and unstable. Oh, we should go back and say that the other unit are 6 to 12. This unit are 4 to 9. So I guess with the 9 max again, you because you're so looking at the old one, you go, oh, this could be a Grail because they're Res 4, they're 2 up armor, they're up to 9 models, all that stuff, and great weapons and things, but they aren't. You do have to get that out of your mind because they all fill different roles. Like this one, for example, it's fearless, so you can't flee with this. You definitely have to be much more careful with that. They're unstable, so if they get caught, maybe in the flank with a big unit of 50 things, then that's going to be really bad for them.
Yep.
But they are 2-up armor and they hit hard, and their draft horses are pretty good. One of the best mounts in the whole book as well. So
this is a fun one too. Like, one of the things the background team really wanted to put in there was the idea that there's more than just the quest. There's this sort of repentance part of knighthood where, almost like a Ronin or like a samurai who's, lost his honor. These are the guys that are out there who, rather than hunting down like a dragon so that they can find complete the lady's quest and get the grail, these guys are hunting down the dragon so that they can just go back home again and not, and get their, spurs back and not be ashamed. So it's like, rather than flee and break from the battle, these guys are just, either laying down their lives or, Harry, whatever you want to think about it as.
Yeah, it's very heroic.
Or slinking off to be a bandit, but pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, no, very much so. Slightly lower movement, but 2 HP. Even with the great weapons, they've got 2-up armor as well. So that and they're every friendly magic phase is going to bring back a guy. So I think these are going to be tough to shift, especially if you got them in the higher end of that 4 to 9 bracket as well. But just got to be careful with how you use them.
And don't deploy your damsel with them.
And your damsel can't go in these units, so don't even try it, folks.
Don't try it.
We make this mistake, so you don't have to. Right, next to the quest. So this is the
now if you were a bit worried about the book being just so alien to you. Oh, Knights of the Quest. Oh, we know who these are.
We do. We very much do. So, can have a Knight Banneret, 816 movement, 1 HP, res 4, so still got that. 2-up armor.
Little boost to their defensive and
Master
offensive,
Sword.
right?
Yes. So, defensive 5 is big. That's going to be quite a big change that you'll see on them as well. But the biggest thing that makes them awesome is the quest rule, I guess. Not only... Amazing. Getting lethal strike and reroll to wound when you're what was the caveat of it? Allocated either towards marked. Oh yeah, so not only that is you mark a model. So similar to the dwarf
Hatred,
grudge, yeah, I guess.
Yeah. And the Rampedons, yeah.
But it's also after you've deployed them as well, which is interesting. So if the opponent goes first, then you've got your thing, isn't it? During the deployment phase, you only must choose.
No, immediately after deploying the first friendly unit.
Okay. This is interesting. Yeah, this is a slight change. That's actually that's pretty cool. After the first friendly unit of Quest Knights. So when you first drop them, you have
whatever
to
the
choose...
opponent has on the board.
Yeah. So which is, I mean, you save these for late deployment, and you could not only do you get probably the matchup that you want, you get a boost to that matchup as well. So and the boost is lethal strike and reroll to wound against them, which is phenomenal. Especially if you're Bastard Sword isn't as high strength than that, so you're at strength 5. So anything strength 6 or thing, you can get in a lethal strikes, res 6, getting a lethal strikes against. This is cool. We really
but
like
it's not. It's the marked unit doesn't actually have to be a single unit the opponent has deployed yet. It is literally any unit from their entire
Iron
book.
Orcs.
Yeah.
Iron Orcs. Yeah.
So if they've got 3 units of Iron Orcs, like to use your example, you've got it against all 3 of those units, which is really cool. Similarly, you could put it on a unit of Feral Orcs. And if your opponent isn't taking Feral Orcs, you don't get the benefit. Why you would do that, there's no reason why you would. But you can do it if you want to.
But yeah, remember, guys, pick a unit that the enemy
has actually got. Yeah, but I love that. But technically, like if your opponent is literally playing all Iron Orcs, then you're winning straight away.
Oh yeah. So a quick aside on these guys, the stat line you're looking at here is basically the old Grail Knight stat line.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So the idea being, like I was saying at the beginning, the Sainted represents the completion of the quest.
Yeah.
These are guys that have been questing for years and years. They represent the very
They're
best.
nearly there.
Yeah, nearly there, but 1 in 100 of them might make it. 1 in 1,000 might make it onto sainthood. So these guys are tough, but they may end up just giving up the quest and going home. And
they're expensive as well, which they should be because they're pretty darn good.
Yes, and they are. So they are one of the most expensive. 6 to 10 as well was an interesting thing.
Yeah, I think both of us, when we saw this Lucky 60s, we both saw this unit and thought, yeah, I'm having one of them. But then by the time we chose everything else we wanted, we just didn't have enough points.
Yeah.
So we just thought, okay, another time.
Yeah, so which is good. It's good. There's a lot of options and stuff, and they're definitely one for the future for us because I look at that rule and I just think it's so good. I think it's so good. So yeah, I'm very excited to play that. Knights of the Court, so slightly lesser stat line from that point of view, but I guess these are your bodyguard ones. So these are the ones that are going to stick around and help for the counter charges and things like that. So yeah, fearless. When joined with a general with courage, they obviously have courage as well. They're 2-up armor. The stats aren't that great, but the fact that they can have bodyguard and be that unit for him. With the sworn companion, in addition, there must be fewer than 3 models with sworn companions in the unit before it hits. Can be distributed on the characters. Just to clarify, this is with his shooting, not with combat, isn't it?
Yeah, that was an interesting discussion we had at the start of our battle.
I believe it is meant to be in the combat phase.
Okay.
You can't distribute. I think they're literally sitting there protecting the Lord.
Yeah.
So
I think that needs clarifying.
This is an interesting choice because they're just feudal knights. They're just your normal, like old realm knights with bodyguard, and that ability right there, to protect your duke or whatever. Are they worth spending special points on? Because if you're needing bodyguard, you're not winning, right? You should be charging and winning the combat. If you're losing the combat and you need that bodyguard, something's going wrong. But the flip side of that coin is you could have a good duke in here, maybe with the distracting, cheap bonus at the beginning, and you could be holding off half of their army for 2 turns. While little darts of hammer knights are slamming into everything else, and then you walk home with the win of that game. So, if I had an expectation on them, I don't think they'll maybe necessarily go up in points, but I could see that unit size dropping down from 6 to 12 to 6 to only 9, and making them a little bit more reasonable. But we'll see. But I think they're a cool choice.
Yeah, so do I, and a very, very different role to probably how the whole army works, right? As well. So a lot of it is. In different ways is trying to blast through and make sure that, but this one kind of wants to stick around and stuff. So very interesting. Like Hobby says, does need clarifying.
I think that needs a little bit of a tweak in the writing of that rule because it's actually written exactly the same way as a Scrapping Lookout from the Ogre Khan's book. But obviously, in the Ogre Khan's book, you definitely can attack a character in combat with a Scrapping Lookout. Because I've never played any Ogre game where a character in a unit with a Scrapping Lookout has not been able to allocate to the character. So
that might be the case.
Yeah. So if it is, then
Ogre's just got a massive boost because your characters are safe in units.
But
if it isn't, then I think that needs to be clarified to say it's only in combat, or is it not? Because we didn't actually have a unit of Knights of the Court.
We didn't have it, but I think when we were doing the list, we were like, no, it's not.
Yeah, well, you thought one thing and I thought the other. You thought it was in combat, which has been clarified as correct now, which is awesome.
Well, I'm not positive on that. I'll be honest. Okay. I only used them once in playtesting because I kind of look at them like Timmy's first night unit. It's like
absolutely, yeah.
For the beginner players, it's a good way to kind of because you're not getting punished by getting charged.
So if you know in the comments, put it down there as well.
If you're sure which way it should be.
We will read that one. Hedge Knights. So these are your crazy dudes on horses, basically. So devastating charge, battle focus. You can have they do have paired weapons as well. So potential 2 attacks with battle focus. They're going to get hit though because they're -2 defensive, so they go down to defensive 2 on the charge, but they hit first, generally speaking. So not too many bells and whistles, but loads of strength 4 AP1 attacks basically is your thing, and just hitting like mad They
the biggest thing there is the light troops, though.
Yes.
That's huge on a fast cavalry unit like that. You know, even if the damage isn't as good as your feudal knights, those guys can get behind enemy lines and just wreak havoc. So pretty neat.
Yeah. So 3-up armor is also less armored from that point of view.
They just don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It could be the just don't hear knights. Yeoman Outriders, your chaff. I don't think they've changed at all.
Nothing has changed.
Apart from they got Aegis.
Yeah.
Right. Which
nice. They're a little bit more expensive. Like 5 points more expensive now.
Yeah, you'll take it. You'll take it for a chance. But yeah, the Robin Hooded Med. So they're in there. They've got his whole thing. Fearless. As well. So this is what I mean.
Yeah, and unstable.
Even at this point, we've got quite a few units that have Fearless or can be Fearless as well. So do look out for that. Your light troops, shooters, enlisted outlaw. Gains ordeal, so gives the Aegis thing. Loses Fearless and unstable. So this is basically if you don't want Fearless. When the unit is deployed, choose a single terrain feature. And that terrain feature is no longer at DTs for any units. So they just basically they clear it out. They're nice, nice fellows. These chaps.
They can fight a little bit better than the old version can as well because they've got defensive and offensive 3 now and potentially paired weapons. Yeah. So they're not completely useless as a unit of harassment as well.
Yeah, but yeah, another way to I guess stop terrain affecting knights.
Massively.
So. Interesting thing.
In fact, when I originally picked my army, I had a unit of these so that my knights didn't have to worry about terrain. In the end, I had to cut them and just put a Strider banner on. So, you know.
But there's choice.
So, yeah.
You've got choice.
Yeah, there is choice, yeah.
And Hooded Men gives good conversion opportunities as well to people with that regard. Siege weapon, so you've got Scorpion and Trebuchet. Trebuchet is the biggest change of those two. Scorpion's pretty same, a little bit cheaper, I think. 140.
No, they're more expensive.
More expensive.
5 points.
Oh, okay. Fair play. But the Trebuchet is very, very different. So it doesn't have the single rock sort of effect. It just has strength 4 AP1. So all of them are strength 4 AP1. And the 3-8. So it's more of a pushing through ranks.
It's an Equitaine killer.
Sort of thing. Equitaine. Very interestingly. And also, I guess, Skaven. Sort of Vermin Swarms as well, right?
Vermin Swarm.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so 1872 as well as for a catapult, so quite a
interesting.
Long
if you get within 18 inches of a trebuchet, it can't shoot you, which is very cool.
Yeah,
but they're about half the cost.
That one's an interesting one. I don't know if 180 will stick with that stat line. I feel like something's got to give somewhere around there. Either the minimum range needs to get a little shorter.
I think 12 inches is fine for trebs.
Yeah, maybe like a 4x6 rather than a 3x. If something changes just a little bit, I think you're going to start seeing them in lists. But I think probably it'll still just be Scorpions all around.
Well, I'm just happy they're half the cost as before because I used to run 2 trebs, so I'm going to be running these just because of that fact. So I'm very happy.
You can only take a certain amount of bowmen though. If you do take 2,
it's true.
So
I'll have to have
there's your restriction.
I mean.
Nothing wrong with 30 bowmen, 10x10x10, and then 2 trebuchets, and then just make sure if you're playing team tournaments, you're always against the Vermin Swarm players.
Right.
Lots of fear and terror.
Dread Elves. That's it. But otherwise, your siege weapons, they're in there, and they're a bit.
It was cool the moment you realised you couldn't just drop a single rock on my Gripply.
The only one not in combat was like your single phase spirit model. I was like, right, I'll put strength 1, strength 4. That's crap. Right, so Pegasus Knights and Sky Heralds. We'll sort of deal with these both at the same sort of time. Pegasus Knights are your beefy combat units. As we said, don't have the hard target. Both have light troops and gallantry in some respect. Pegs are 2, Sky Heralds are 1. But you've got basically 2 units that do 2 different things but are your flying pegs. Peg Knights are 50x50, whereas Sky Heralds are 40x40. So I guess, was there an element of keeping the Sky Heralds in because of that?
I think the original talk was we wanted two different types of units. We wanted the more heavier hitting, can actually put a hurt on flying cavalry, and then we wanted the light harassing ones. And the question was, is it light Pegasus and heavy Pegasus? Is it Pegasus and Royal Pegasus? What's the breakdown going to be? And initially these were Periton Knights, so it was the winged forest deer, and that's the reason you have ordeal-based troops like the men-at-arms style troops, the most trusted sergeant-at-arms riding them rather than a knight, because they were lighter and they weren't supposed to be heavy armored knights riding on the top. But I look at it like, if people have models on 40mm bases and they like the Sky Heralds, those are light Pegasus for your army.
Yeah, absolutely. What we did have a thing, which we'll come on to last, actually, about the models per army, which seemed, I don't know whether this is a mistake, because we have a 3 to 5 with a 0 to 12 and a 3 to 6 with a 0 to 10. It seemed obvious that it was the other way around. I don't know whether that is a mistake in the book that we've got.
Yeah, because in order to get 12, you'd have to have 3 units of 4 in order to get 10. Yeah, it just seemed a bit flipped round.
Or whether we're just my maths at that point, I was like, I don't know whether my maths was just that bad that I think that's the thing. But yeah, don't know whether that's the thing. So that's interesting as a thought process behind that. But yeah, so. Biggest difference is the pegs.
You can see the frown.
Yeah.
I honestly, I don't know what to tell you guys. This is an interesting. I haven't seen it. I didn't even notice it because I've only played the Pegasus Knights in a couple of test games. Yeah. Sky Heralds I played once during playtesting, and that was it. So, and I didn't see it in this version. I think that'll be something that probably will get fixed.
It basically looked like to us, you just have 2 units maxed out, and that should be the models per army.
Yeah.
But whether or not there was another thought process behind that, there's
probably like a 9-page manual as to why it is actually this. But
there was a lot of discussion on how to do the gallantry rules, and I think a lot of it is like how Infernal Dwarves were doing their sort of like War Machine Fires of Industry rules.
Yeah.
So I think there's some tinkering with how we're doing percentages on specific types of units moving forward with just the 9th Age in general.
Sure, fair enough. So yeah, I mean, looking at these, as we've already sort of insinuated too, is that the Peg Knights are your big combat heavy. They're bigger base, more HP.
Knights have got an extra attack even when they're not charging.
Yes, so one of the biggest things is the 2 attacks each. So lots of strength 4
and better agility
6 if you're charging, better agility as well. The courage thing, 2 up armor. So these are probably traditional what you would before try
extra
and make
HP as well.
Yeah, try and make as your combat guys. So yeah, with the 3 HP. Interestingly, this is where I said the banneret doesn't offer the +1 HP on him, but that otherwise we're your combat guys compared to the Sky Heralds, who have got the hard target, the skirmisher, the vanguard, and all that stuff. So, which were options before, but they've now been put into a completely different thing.
They're actually better at charging because they've got the Fly 10.
Yeah,
Fly 10, impact hits 1 as well instead of having multiple attacks on your Herald. But I mean,
more reliable but less punch.
Yeah, so more, very much so. That's summed up well. Well done.
Oh, there you go.
Then last thing. So by the way, well done, guys. You've nearly got to the end.
My favourite unit in the game now.
Yes. Which
until I screwed it up at the end, but we won't go there.
Yeah. There were quite possibly man of the matches in our unit, but
they were man of the match from my last 10 battles.
But Faye, so this is your magical sort of spirits, the last sort of like section. Naiads.
Naiads.
Naiads
in between.
Dryads and Naiads. I think I only know it because of C.S. Lewis when I was a little kid.
Fair enough. So these are strength 3, AP 3 grind with 2 each. So that's an interesting one. 2 HP, 2 res 2, so they're not going to survive long. But they do have a 5 of Aegis, which is interesting. So
if they pass it.
Wizard Conclave, yeah, very much so. Wizard Conclave, can be, so can get some extra spells, which is cool. A good selection as well there.
Definitely really good selection.
Complement the army, so that is a definite possibility for them. I guess one of the fluffy things, but also perhaps a drawback, is the water spirits rule, which is Strider water spirits, and they get deployed very differently in that you can ambush them, but only from water.
Not ambush. No, it's not ambush. It's scout.
Scout. Sorry. Yeah. Something else. But yeah.
Something else is ambush. Yeah.
Dependent on water to get the most out of them.
Yeah.
You can deploy them from your deployment zone, which is a good addition to this. But yeah,
I think that needed to be there as well. Yeah.
Enemy models that have flaming attack lose it with them as well. So they are your water spirits, right? Genuinely, exactly what it says on the tin. So they're debuffing water, putting out water and stuff. So yeah, that's an interesting one. That's quite niche. But there is a lot of flaming stuff going around and ways to get flaming. So that's I'm interested to see how that much works. But otherwise, yeah, AP3 is nothing to sniff at.
No, and I like that there were movement 612 as well. That gave them a nice little option of being where they needed to be.
Yeah, very much a fun unit, 25 and 25 as well. So definitely a new based. This whole section really could be argued as a completely new spin on things.
Yeah, I like that you can also basically take your wizards outside of characters if you want to.
Yes.
If you take these guys, if you take a fake courtier, you can just slam your 1,800 points of characters with just nasty guys with nasty combos and night units. So,
yeah, and especially if you think of Orison as a sort of magic-y type buffing as a system as well, is that you could actually do quite a lot with just an adept in in your heroes. So the list option building in this is really, really good, and it does definitely do a lot of that. Friar's Lantern, we don't know anything about, so this is new for us. So do you want to take this one?
Yeah, so this is your Will o' the Wisp. It's your spirit in the woods. It's not actually there. That's the premise of the unit. Is it was never on the battlefield at all. You were chasing nothing. And so it's a very different unit to play as chaff, basically. You can go with your traditional mounted Yeomen, who are going to do what they've always done, which is die really nicely to the nastiest thing your opponent has. Or you can take these guys. And, I like the sweeping attacks. I like, going after your opponent's scary cavalry unit that you've been doing the standoff with. Who's going to charge first? Who's going to risk failing the charge first? Well, now you got them -2 advance, -2 march, -2 pursuit. So there's a little fun extra that you can do with these guys that you can't do with Yeomen, and they're pretty quick. So
the last rule, as you said, they were never there sort of thing, is that they can flee and despite being fearless, so it's an interesting concept there, and they can rally. If they rally, they're not shaken, so they can move again, which is cool.
Yeah. There's 2 different fly values actually within that entry. I'm not sure. That probably needs that might be corrected by the time the actual release book comes out.
That's funny. Yeah.
But quite different.
I think the fly 518 is gone. I think they're 816.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
The red is the new correct, but interesting chaff unit, and like you said, probably some of the more skilled players would be able to use this very, very well. I think so. It's something to look out for as well, which means we're not going to take it.
It didn't show up in my list either.
Too much of a head
scratch. I was playtesting against. He brought it, and I was not happy with it.
Yeah, sure, right.
It does what?
Exactly.
So if you got to this point, firstly, well done, because we've been talking for a long time. But also, you're probably wondering where the Green Knight the hell is, man. So, firstly, just as a disclaimer, he's different. He's very, very different. But he is also customizable.
He's kind of 4 times different.
Yes. So, firstly, he's not on your 25 by 50. He's on either a 50 by 50 or a 50 by 75. Again, this is looking at your old. If we are going to compare sort of thing and things, I would very much consider these completely new units rather than one of these is the Green Knight sort of thing, because that isn't really there in that same regard in terms of fluff and stuff. But these are essentially different forms of the Green Knight, right? So the Ladies' Courtier we'll tackle first.
I took this one.
Courtier of the Dawn.
Courtier of the Dawn as well. Yeah, I like it. It was just a way of getting a nasty mofo running around causing problems. This is... I kind of like, probably wrongly, because I never mentioned it out loud, and I'm going to get shouted down now. I compared this to a Varkalak in that you just run it around and kill stuff. But
that's exactly what I've been calling him since day one.
There you go.
He's the Equitaine Varkalak.
Yeah, exactly. Obviously it's not that resilient in that it's only got 5 up armor, 5 up Aegis, so you take one of those away and it's quite vulnerable. And especially to shooting, of course, because it only gets the 4 up Aegis in melee. But generally, it can just do you a job, and I like it. Yeah. A little bit expensive, 430 points perhaps for a Res 5 with limited protection. But you've just got to make sure you have other units to cause problems while it is doing its job, basically.
Yeah, and in terms of the options, like we said, you chose Courtier of the Dawn, so that's going to be your killy wandering around guy, or the Courtier of the Dusk is going to be the more magic-y. It becomes a Wizard's Adept, with Druidism or Witchcraft, and also helps other spells get off as well a little bit. So it depends on your list building, also your preference, but one of these would be very useful in most lists, I think, which is cool. 50 by 50 is not too hard to convert either from 25 to 50 as well. I will go as a caveat. I'm one of those that don't like pace changes, so I won't say much more about that. But that's
holding
we will hold that till last. And the last one, the other type of Green Knight, I guess, is I need to get my thing wrong. Hang on. Oh, there we go. Fey Knight. So again, two types. Spring and a summer. So the biggest thing for me there is these are the ambushing in that type of terrain. So probably we'll go straight on to the biggest weakness, I guess, of this unit is if you're spring, you're bound to water, so you can only be ambushed from water. It can be turn 1, which is a bonus of it, and it is only water. And if you're summer, you are bound to a field. I don't know the maps off by heart. I don't know whether they all have a water and a field, but I guess in some tournaments where they're not bound by the map packs or anything like that, you might get issues.
Yeah, if you get put on a table where it hasn't got a field, or it hasn't got a water, then you're going to be running to the TO and saying, "Hey, I've got a unit that can't actually get on the battlefield." And that is potentially a little bit of a problem.
So it's the thing in friendly games, if you don't have that and you should like just whack on a water thing, because we were saying before the thing, because I had the spring chap.
You didn't have a lot of choice as to where he was deploying.
No, he had to go one place.
He was kind of in a bit of a problem right from the off.
But we saw that as a drawback. But we thought, well, if you're in a friendly game and you don't have a water piece, just put a water piece on. Don't be one of those guys.
It's not a friendly game if you don't put a water piece on when someone needs it. Yeah.
The only drawback we can see in terms of that is when used in a tournament setting or like a team setting where you've got specified maps or anything like that. So just to be aware of that, they can only be ambushed from one of those things. Otherwise,
maybe it just needs something like or counters normal ambush if there isn't one of those terrain on the board.
Or you're into deployment or something like that. I don't know. A restricted ambush, if not, maybe.
Yeah, large flail's pretty cool on summer.
Yeah, well, we've started off with that because I think they're really, really good. Otherwise, so we're sticking on the summer one. You get the large flail, +1 attack for every model in contact. That's cool. Get flanked, baby. Who cares?
You're talking at least 3 extra attacks, unless you're going against a big monster yourself.
Ignoring parry is quite big for someone with such high offensive as well. So you've got all of it really. I quite like that. So that's your killy sort of version. Then the other side, the spring, stubborn, +1 Aegis, and Bastard Sword. Almost, I think that's really, really, really good.
Massively good.
Stubborn on a supernal anyway is fantastic. Discipline 8 isn't too bad with that regard as well. And yeah, the extra Aegis, I guess you're talking killier and more defensive. But then I wouldn't class that version as defensive because he got Strength 6, AP 3. He's got 4 attacks. And I say, having Stubborn on you is no mean feat. And duels out characters as well is the last thing. But what's your preference out of those two?
I've been using the Summer Knight because I wanted to make the model, and just the idea of that, like, sort of Witch King giant flail swinging around off of like a Green Knight, but like, I had in my head this sort of like nasty dude coming up out of the woods who doesn't look like a knight in shining armor, who looks like more the Guillermo del Toro version. So I wanted to make him.
Which neatly sort of, as that is the end of the book, neatly, and as if we'd planned something of this sort of regard, takes us on to some of the questions that we had around customizing and models and base sizes and things. And you, not only have you playtested and ACS'd, you've also created some of the most fantastic models as well, and we will try as best as we can to show them off
seamlessly.
Here.
Switch.
All right, we'll see what we can do here.
Absolutely. I'll move over to the camera. So I will try and make this look better because I've zoomed in quite a bit. But carry on talking as we do.
Okay. So this is my collection here. This is going to be old Equitaine is everything that you see on the table. You have your Duke on Hippogriff. We have units of old Realm Knights, Men at Arms, Knights Aspirant, Questing Knights over there, Pegasus Knights 1 and 2, some Trebuchets. But really what I wanted to talk about are, how do you change things over if you have a Hippogriff on a 50 by 50? Now, when I originally built this, most of this army, it was at the end of Games Workshop's run on Warhammer Fantasy Battles. So I was just putting together models that I could, that were eBay items, that were ditch, try and collect it before they're all gone, sort of thing.
Sure.
So going through the list of changes, I wanted to talk about the base size concerns that people had. The big ones are going to be first, Hippogriff going to 50 by 75. Why did that happen, and how do we fix it? So in general, I believe the 9th Age is going to 50 by 50 monsters are losing towering presence. And considering how big and important of a rule that is, Hippogriffs had to get just a little bit more big and important to continue to have that rule, rather than having like a strange change like you're seeing with Manticore kind of having 2 versions and Dread Elves.
Yeah.
So this one to me is the easiest fix. Almost anywhere online you can get the MDF wooden bases, and it is an easy, let's see, I got them somewhere around here. It's an easy fix to take, your little wooden base and get 50 by 75 MDF, get 2 small segments, 12.5, 12.5 millimeters, tack it onto each end, front and back, drop your 50 by 50 in the middle, and then add a little basing material to the front and back. And now you can still have your same old amazing Hippogriff Duke that you've always had for display. And if you take them to a tournament, a tiny little magnet works just fine, which is going to bring me into probably the biggest and hardest change is the face steed. So you have your Green Knight who, let's see, can we see him here hanging out?
So you can see him under Hyper-G. I've taken Hyper-G off, and Hyper-G's now a Green Knight figure. And I've put a picture on the main screen.
We got 50 by 75 millimeter base. This for me is going to be based up around the outside of it with pretty decent amounts of probably static grass, block, sand, all that good stuff. And then I have him magnetized so he can sit on that base and become the Fey Knight anytime he wants, or he can go back to being the Green Knight. If I want to use the model that I built as my Summer Fey Knight with his killer flail right there, he sits perfectly on there. He's about to get painted as well.
Yeah.
Trying to get him ready for the launch.
Man. Yeah.
And then I also printed out a damsel on a unicorn. This is a Lost Kingdom miniature. And she can either go in a unit, although she's pretty robust for ranking up with other guys, or she can act as a damsel on a face deed, which is something that I've been using, a damsel adept with shamanism or divination to run. And she kind of works as both chaff and like a really good utility player, because she's 4-up Aegis all the time. She's hard to take out, and you know, she can get around, use orisons where she's needed.
Yeah.
And my last game, I polished off my opponent's chaff with that breath weapon out of nowhere, and they did not like that. So a lot of fun there. The big thing that I'll say is, you know, when you're looking at your old collection and you're looking at the new units, like Penitent Knights. Well, a Penitent Knight can be an old questing knight. You know, I have you know, some of my old questing knights, like this guy over here, are a little bit like dirtier, grungier. To me, that's more like the Penitent Knight sort of look. Yeah. And then I have some of my both Grail Knights and questing knights where you have them with sword and shield. Like this guy is probably one of my favorites for a new questing knight model. Has the bastard sword over his shoulder.
Yeah.
Was a Grail Knight. Now probably one of the newer questing knights. And so I'm looking at it like it's lances, it's great weapons, it's bastard swords. All of this stuff is stuff we have, and there's not even a lot that you have to do in terms of changing movement tray sizes or anything like that. Probably the only unit that's, like, to me, brand new, we have nothing for it, you know, we're going to need to go out and get some new models, are those fun free knights. And I like them. I was thinking of doing sort of a Arabian, Persian sort of theme with them, because if you've read the fluff book, you have the sort of new colonies of Equitaine, and there's a whole faction that's basically like Arabian Nights, but not the book. So to do that as your unit of free knights, I think would be really cool. And Marcos from the forums, Marcos24, has some amazing models out to do that with.
It really does.
He's releasing, actually, I'm going to show you guys, this will be the last thing I show off today, is he's got a new damsel that I had him commissioned so that all the people who worked on the ACS team could have a cool new damsel. This is the unicorn version.
That's so good.
But it's also going to be available to everybody from the forums, the general public. This same model, but hooded version, if you want to have a second one, or if you like the sort of like bigger cloak look on it.
Yeah.
And those will both be available if anybody wants to pick them up from him. But he's a pretty fantastic guy. He games down here in Southern California with me.
Oh, right. Wow, cool. Yeah, I've seen a lot of his models on used with TTS. Through the Essence of War, he's put a lot of stuff into that. So yeah, and I really like some of his artwork. We've used some of his artwork before on some of our things. So yeah, I definitely recommend him as well.
Yeah, I think a few of the guys that are like company supporters are going to be picking it up within the next month. So hopefully we'll have that in line with the release right around the time you're seeing this video. Poke around online or on the forums, and you should be able to find that to pick up. And it ranks up really nicely. I'm going to be having that probably in my big block of questing knights, or in a unit of Knights Resplendent with divination to really hammer home with those rerolls to hit.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. No, I mean, that's great. And thank you very much for showing us some of your models as well.
Of course.
I think, thanks for joining us as well. I know HyperG's just left so that we can look at your models, which is good. But yeah, we both say thank you very much for joining us. It's 1 o'clock or something ridiculous your time, so it's incredible that you've managed to do that on our time as well. So thank you so much. Thanks for all the work you put into the book, and spread that to the rest of the ACS and all the team and stuff. Guys, if you guys watching, if you've got to this, it's about 2 hours now. Well done. If you've done this in one sitting, even better as well. But it's nice to go through the list and look at all that. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. It was really fun to do this. This is my first time doing an interview or anything for the Ninth Age. Had a great time.
You're a natural.
Thanks. And you know, if you guys are ever out in Los Angeles, you got to come hit me up.
Oh,
play a game.
Absolutely. And if not, we'll do something online for sure.
There you go.
Maybe around this, but yeah, thanks very much. Thanks to you guys for watching, and stay tuned for some more Kingdom of Equitaine, because I'm definitely going to be taking these boys out.
Awesome. Have a great night. Well, day for you.
Yeah. Wherever you are, have a good time. Yeah, we'll see you later.